And what's your name, Sammy? I apologize. I do have this for you.
You know what? It's fine. No, just kidding.
Don't be like that. You know, it reminds. What's the joke they say? The Jewish mother. How many Jewish mothers does it take to change a light bulb? None. It's okay, darling. I'll just sit in the dark. It's fine. No problem. Okay. That's Al Milsa Dibdichusa to start the day. Oh, there's so many other versions of it. You know all of them.
The light bulb thing?
Yeah.
How many light bulbs does it change? How many Americans does
It helps.
change?
It helps.
How many?
Try again.
Americans?
Try again. It's called English.
It's called waking up.
Yeah.
How many Americans does it take to change a light bulb?
None. They just declare darkness to be the new standard.
Also not bad. Very good. At least 3. 1 to change the light bulb and 2 to share the experience.
Okay. 1 to hold the light bulb and 2 to make the whole world revolve around them. Yeah, there's so many different variations of that. Okay. Rabbi Sai. Mivelen Lernen. 1 second, is that mine? Is that mine? Yes, it is, isn't it? Yes, it is.
There's another one.
Yes, I know.
There was another.
And there goes the microphone.
No.
The rabbis lose a microphone.
See, that's what I do. Elias to do it.
No, I think I'm just going to do the clip.
Well, yeah, the clip's easier, yeah. Magnetism and I don't go very well together. Okay, here we go. So, Rabbi Say, let us remind ourselves. Sorry, I think I lost my voice a bit in the bar mitzvah last night. That was a rocking party. Okay, so we learned Seif Nun, and I think we did Seif Nun Aleph as well last week. Let me just find my copy. Hold on a second. There we go. Let's run through it again quickly. And we want to... The sugya. The sugya that we really... I'll try not to do more than 2 or 3 more sessions on this, but it is a really quite an important sugya. It is the sugya of zechila. What is zechila? What a blank look that was. Zechila, Rabbi Sai?
The flow.
That's right. As opposed to?
Or seepage.
Seepage. Oh, I like it. Very good indeed. You're absolutely right. Seepage. Right. As opposed to ashboiren. Very good. Correct. Absolutely. Right. Today we shall dig beneath the surface. Pun unintended. Okay. Let's go through. Yeah, we need to do it in this order. Let's run through again, and this time I'm going to give you, we were up to the Chazon Ish, if you remember. I mentioned the Chazon Ish Pshat in Seif Nun, and that is what we're going to do. But for the benefit of perhaps those who were not here last week, we're going to run through Seif Nun and Nun Aleph in Shulchan Aruch. After having established in Seif Beis that one of the primary differences between Ma'ayan and Mikveh is that a Ma'ayan is metaher zochalin, as opposed to a mikveh which is only metaher b'ashboiren. There are potentially many other differences. Legabe the shiur, legabe shuvin, but we're not going to go into those. Seif Nun. Mikveh shel mei geshamim. Seif Nun we're going to learn now. Mikveh shel mei geshamim shenifratz echad mikos miksolov. A mikveh of mei geshamim that has the requisite amount. Mem Sa'ah, right? What do we say? Anybody remember? Halacha l'maisa, the minhag is we use a minimum of 1,000 liters. Correct. Well done. Very good. So you have a mikveh, and there's a breach in one of the walls. Interesting. He says one of the walls. What the karkois hamikveh? Let's talk about that. V'hamayim yotzim derech hasedek, and water is definitely going out and seeping out via the crack. Says the Shulchan Aruch, and Rabbi Say, you need to know, what's your problem? Seif Nun.
I have a double, I have yours.
When in doubt, always blame Sammy. The default position. Okay, so this, for your notes, this is the opinion of the Rosh. Very important. This is the opinion of the Rosh. This Shulchan Aruch is based on the Rosh. That what? That if there is 40 sa'ah Im yisharu by arboim saw acha sheyetzu ktsoson she'ad hasedek kosher, which simply speaking would seem to indicate that you have a crack, zum Beispiel, halfway up the mikveh wall. If, when all that water has gone out, you are still left with 40 sah, then kosher. The mikveh is kosher. And here, let me just add a drop of understanding or of depth. It would be mashma that you could be tovel in the entire mikveh. You with me? Mm-hmm. That means you would not necessarily, and this is some discussion, you would not necessarily need to crouch down and be careful to be tovel only below the crack. You with me? Mm-hmm. To be markin roshai. It would appear from the lashon of the Rosh that what is the chiddush of the Rosh? Let's be lomdish for a minute. What is the chiddush of the Rosh? The Achronim explain that the chiddush of the Rosh is very simple. That you don't say that the mayim which is zochalin, above the crack, that is posel water, and therefore, this is the chiddush. He's getting all agitated, which is good. Just give me a second. Let's explain. The chiddush of the Rosh would appear to be, according to the way most Achronim understand, is that you ignore the fact that I now have 40 sah below the crack, but it is mixing freely. It's water. Hello? It's water. Fluid dynamics. And it's mixing with water that is posel. The chiddush is that you don't say that it passels the whole mikveh. That I have here a lot of water, which is not good for a mikveh. The chiddush in the Rosh is that although there is water here which is not kosher for a mikveh, haraya, if you would not be left with 40 sah, the whole mikveh would be posel. Nonetheless, we don't see the whole thing as mixing, and to the extent that it is posel the whole mikveh. That is the chiddush of the Rosh. Gabi, what's bothering you?
I'm confused about the case of we wait until the crack leads the water.
I didn't say wait. Where does it say wait?
I'm saying because we said that until Yesharu.
Im Yesharu by. If it will be left.
Until the crack.
Correct. If it will be left.
You said before that you don't have to crouch to. So either it's left, meaning everything until the crack is gone, or it's not left and everything is still there, and then we don't have.
Everything is there. Everything is there, but this is a quantity. How much? If when all the water would leave, you would be left with less than 40 sah, so then already now the mikveh is posel.
You're saying you just calculate.
Correct. That's what you don't have to wait. Okay. Correct. Im yisharu. Yeah. Okay. Now I get your confusion. Right. Im yisharu. Now. So that would appear to be, you with me? That is the chiddush of the Rosh, that we don't say that the whole thing is nifsal, okay? And that, by the way, potentially, we're going to see another opinion, the opinion of the Rash. Now, just for your own general knowledge, forgive me if I assume too much or too little, on the side of, Mikvaos in Taharas, there's no Gemara, right? Mm-hmm. There are Perushim on the side of the Mishnayos, which are printed at the back of the Shas, yes, and one of the main Perushim on the side is the Rash, not the Rosh, no Aleph. Rash Misirlo, one of the Rishonim, and the Rosh is Reish Aleph Shin, as you know, yes, you all know the Rosh, you're learning your day, I don't need to tell you, so not to be confused. So these two opinions here we have in the Shulchan Aruch. The first opinion, which is the more lenient opinion which the Shulchan Aruch brings, is the opinion of the Rosh, and the Yesh Machmirim we're going to learn in a minute is the Rash. Okay, just for clarity. So the Rash is one of the major Rishonim when it comes to learning anything to do with Taharos and certainly Mikvaos. So the Chiddush of the Rosh is that we don't say I have my zochalin here mixing in and therefore the whole thing's possible. No, not possible. You can, and pashtus, you could be tovel in the entire mikveh. Okay, that is the opinion of the Rosh. I want to add a chiddush of the Chazon Ish. Chiddush of the Chazon Ish is as follows. The Chazon Ish learns pshat, and it seems that potentially the Noda B'Yehuda would appear to possibly agree with this. It's an interesting pshat. that we understood that the question is where geographically is the hole or the crack located. If it's located low down such that there will not be 40 sar left, then you've got a problem. It's about the location of the crack. That would be the simple way to understand the Shulchan Aruch. Says the Chazon Ish, no, that's not the point. The point is actually much more about the type and the size and the shape of the crack or hole. If it is very minor, you have, when you if you have a bath, it's a very English thing, I know, but you have, when you pull the plug out in the bath, you get this so-called whirlpool effect, right? So you see immediately the water gets all sort of drawn. Says the Chazon Ish, that's what the Rosh means. The Rosh means only the bit of water which is right next to the crack, which is currently being drawn, sort of like a current, being drawn towards it, that is zochel. The rest, even though in 3 minutes' time, that bit of the water now there, which is still, will make its way across slowly, but at the moment it's only the bit which is right next to the crack, which is currently being drawn in, that is zochel, and the rest of the mikveh makes up your 40 sar. Massive chiddush, big kula, right? You hear that? Fascinating Chazon Ish. Just mentioning it. Yeah. So how do you measure? Could be a big nafkamina. Could be there's a kula potentially from the Chazon Ish. You could have a mikveh which is.
The rest is considered bashboyden.
Yeah, correct. That's a massive chiddush. It's just a kula. Pashtus, most achronim do not learn like that. But hold on a second. I did see here. It is definitely the Chazon Ish.
Explaining the Rosh, right? That's his statement.
Correct. That's the Chazon Ish explaining the Machaba, which is the Rosh. Let us now move on to the Ramah, which is the Shitta of the Rash and the Modcha. Says the Ramah. So it's the bottom line in the Shulchan Aruch here. Yes, Yehago v'yesh machmirin afilu im yisharu arboim so ad hasedek. The opinion of the Rash is that I don't care whether you may have, let's say you've got a massive mikveh, 5,000 liters, and you have a crack which is very high up. By the time all of that water goes out, you are still left with 4,000 liters. I don't know. No good. It's all possible. What's the Lomdus, Rabbi say? What's the understanding of the Rash? What do you think is the svara of the Rash?
I mean, it can't be because of some that it's zochalin in the moment. That cannot be it. But good question.
It's the opposite of what I said in the Rosh, Kobe. What's the svara of the Rash? What's the svara of the Ramah? It's going to be the opposite. That's the Rosh. Now we're doing the Ramah, which is the Rash, v'yesh machmirin, that even if you're going to be left with 1,000 sa'ah, the whole mikveh is possible because
it's still that is considered zochalin.
And therefore,
should not be.
So zochalin is, because it's connected, then the whole mikveh becomes possible. I have a bit of zechila, even though I can't disassociate the two. The minute I now have a mikveh which is zochel. It's not even about, in other words, it's not a din in shiur. We can get into the Lomdas. You really want to get into the Lomdas? We can get into the Lomdas. The Vilna Gaon learns, we're going to see the Gaon soon.
But it's not zochalin in the moment, though.
It is, there's a crack. It's going out. Water's going out.
So if it's sank up under the crack, and it's still...
So how is it going to become kosher again? Like No, it became possible. At the moment there is seepage.
Yeah.
The moment there is seepage, it became possible. Okay. That's the Rash. So I now have a mikveh possible.
So it didn't become kosher after the zechila stopped?
Why should it, hocus pocus? Well, how should it become kosher?
Because as long as there's a crack, there's zechila. As soon as it sinks under the crack, there's no zechila.
So it magically becomes kosher again?
Not magically, but just...
It is magically, because until now it was, the whole mikveh was possible. Let's look at the bit that, let's look at the bit...
Until it sinks down, and then the whole mikveh is kosher
again, that's magically. Let's just do this logically. So maybe, again... No, let's go through this. The bit, let's say I have 5,000 saw, whatever, right? And the crack is very high up, whatever. The minute I have zechila, and by the way, in Sif Nun Aleph we're going to define zechila. How much? But okay, zechila. Then, and there is a connection between these two sifim, which we're going to see later. But, so I now have a mikveh which is posul. The minute there is a crack and water is going out, the entire mikveh, the drop at the bottom, is posul. It's posul. Okay. It is posul. Okay. The whole mikveh.
Yeah, okay.
The whole mikveh is posul. Not just the posul water went out. That would be the viewpoint of the Rosh. The posul water went out. It wasn't matame the rest of it, so matame is the wrong word. It didn't invalidate the rest of it. But according to the Rash, the entire mikveh is zochalin.
Because you can't
it's zochalin.
Between the water.
Correct. So the whole mikveh, I don't have a mikveh here. So the water goes out, and then, hey presto, all of a sudden I have a mikveh. Where does this water come from? What is this? Where's this water? Where did it come from? What made it kosher?
So you need new water.
I'm posing a bit, I'm just challenging Gabby back a little bit to what... I'm not saying definitively, I'm just making him feel slightly uncomfortable, that's all. To say, no, you hear the svara now bit? It didn't work, okay. Obviously I have to try harder. No, but you hear the svara, you hear what I'm saying. So how, I'll tell you what this has to do with. It has to do with, and I wasn't even going to go into this, and I'm not going to, but I'm just going to mention it, whether zechila and she'uvim, Maim She'uvim, we started talking about Maim She'uvim, right? Does Maim She'uvim also, is Maim She'uvim a problem with Zechila or not? In the Lomdus, the bottom line is that the minute I have Zechila, the entire mikveh is possible. For today, let's shelve how we're going to make it kosher again, for today. Okay?
One question.
Yeah, sure.
If there's a ma'ain, like a mayan.
Mayan, yeah.
Mayan, right? And we say that the mayan is kosher zechila, right? So if it's flowing,
yes,
flowing, you could do tefillah and it's good.
Yes,
right? Because it's a mayan.
Right.
And then somehow something
very
stops
good,
and the mayan
very
fills
good,
up and it's
very
unflowing.
good, very good. That's a Mishnah, and that's.
So then, would you say that it's still zechila?
No, because so there's interesting. So first of all, I don't know whether you realize this, you've asked a very, very, very good question, which is, does zechila a problem both ways? Is zechila only out of a mikveh? What about zechila into a mikveh? That's what you've spoken about. And that is a big issue, big shaila. That's point number one, yes. Correct, it is. It is.
Stops being a zechila, but
correct,
it's still possible.
Correct. And this is going to actually have practical application, but we're not going to get to it today, which is, no, but you're right, and that is when somebody, imagine you do in English we used to call it a belly flop. I don't know what you call it. It's like when somebody, like some idiot, jumps into the pool kind of thing. Yeah? You go, splash. And water goes, and this is something we're actually going to learn a little bit about this. We're going to start, and this is where it does become relevant. So this lomdus is going to become relevant. Okay? It's a good point. Splashing out, splashing in. What happens if it goes out and doesn't come back in? And that we're going to see between this and the next seif. So, we have the Ramah now being machmir, that even if there's 40 sah, it's possible. Says the Ramah, v'yesh lachush l'divrayim l'chatchila l'sdoim hasedek. The Ramah paskins l'chumra. The Ramah paskins l'chumra. We have to be machmir l'chatchila. What does that mean to be machmir l'chatchila? Says the Aruch HaShulchan. It means that if somebody was toivel in such a mikveh, we would say it's okay. But the evidence would be okay. But l'chatchila, you should fill up the crack. How much? Stop the crack. Just fix it. Just make sure that it doesn't.
Fill up the crack.
The crack. Sorry, the sedek. Well, sorry. Yeah. Listoim has sedek. Fine. We will miss out the next halacha in the Ramah because it's not so relevant. Go to the first wide line. Ve'ein yitzias hamayim koroi zochalin. This is important, and it's partly to do with your point, Gabby. When do we say that the water leaving the mikveh is called zochalin? That's only elak she'ein choizrin lemikveh. That's only if it goes out and stays out. Aval kashayotzin ma'at, and this word ma'at is something that is debated. We're going to see. Ramesh Weinstein talks about it. Aval kashayotzin ma'at v'choizrin shom lo mikveh zechila. So if some water leaves the mikveh but is going to come straight back, that's not called zechila. Okay? That's not called zechila.
Meaning, like, there's not a crack that goes into nothing, but let's say like
Well, let's say for example, your mikveh is built in a courtyard or something where it's a little bit diagonal or something, right? So the water is going to splash out and immediately come back in by virtue of gravity, whatever. Then that's fine. Okay, that is Seif Nun. Let's stop here for a minute. And let us go back to your Seif base. We have to learn a Pischei Tshuva. I'm doing this in order. I was speaking to Shlomo Fanasa last night, and we were discussing about Mikvaos. And one of the difficult things here is to make Seder. And this is what I'm spending time on, trying to put the things in order and into context. So you've got to jump around, but the jumping around is so that it should be in order. The Pischei Tshuva Sifkoten Gimel. Right? You got that?
Yeah.
Pischei Tshuva Sifkoten Gimel. Yes, correct. Now, the context here is, let me remind ourselves, the Shulchan Aruch says in the end of Seif Aleph, look up, the Shulchan Aruch says in the end of Seif Aleph, V'tzorich she'achoritz shebo yamayim godol yoser mishiur zeh. Says the Shulchan Aruch, when you build a mikveh, make the boir, make the charitz, make the receptacle, no, it's not a receptacle, the pool, but the ground, the hole. Yeah, make the hole bigger than just your 40 saw. Make sure the spare capacity above the waterline. Why? Says the Shulchan Aruch, shekeshetikones hatoiveles, because when the person goes into the mikveh to be tovel, v'yitpechu hamayim, make sure so that when the person goes in, imagine if it was exact. I have a memsa or mikveh, exactly. And I also make sure that it is level, flush with the top of the hole. Then the minute somebody goes in, however skinny they are, you don't have memsa. Yeah. Simple. So make sure that you have memsa, the person goes in, displaces the water, eureka, but it still stays inside, we're all good. That's the Shulchan Aruch. Says the Pischei Tshuva, Ein b'tshuvas me'il tzedakah, similar test, shekosav, de b'mei mikveh, tzorich sheyeh hachoretz godel kol kach, be'inyan shekeshiyikonis adom l'teicha litvel, lo yishpechu min hamayim chutza v'loi klum. Says the me'il tzedakah, you need to make it bigger than even the Shulchan Aruch is suggesting. Make it big enough so that when somebody goes in, even if you have 1,000 saw, it seems, make sure that nothing leaves the mikveh. Now this is going to be really interesting. You see where slowly we're going to build this picture up. Make sure that nothing exits the mikveh. Even if you have 1,000 saw, it won't help. After even though it would appear from the Shulchan Aruch that we've just learnt now in Seif Aleph, that's not a problem because the Shulchan Aruch is only concerned about what? He's only concerned that you're not going to have mem saw. Mashma, if you have 1,000 saw, he's not bothered. Says the Miltzdoka. True, it's true the Shulchan Aruch doesn't care, but I care. Why? Because the Shulchan Aruch l'shitosei ozil lekamon Seif Nun. The Shulchan Aruch is in consonance with his own opinion, which we've just learnt. The shitta of the Rosh. And that's why it would be a problem. Because you have zechila. Right? And then he says an interesting point. He says, well, hold on a second. The Ramah over there is even more machmir. So why is the Ramah here quiet? The Shulchan Aruch, who's always only ever concerned about memsa. So he says, memsa. That's all I care about. The Ramah, as we saw in Seif Nun just now, is more machmir. So then, why does the Ramah not say anything here and keep us in suspense for 49 Seifim? The Ramah, l'shitosei, who passes like the Rash, should have said something here immediately. He should have challenged the Shulchan Aruch and said, no, yesh machmirin, on the basis of what I said later. It's not good enough just to be worried about memsa. Even if you have 1,000 saw, if water leaves the mikveh, if it's zochalin, you have a problem. Why did he not say anything? That's his question. Mishum delay mefurish b'divrei ha'mechabel ha'hedya. Because it doesn't explicitly, very interesting klal in Shulchan Aruch and Ramah, very interesting. Although it's true, it's by implication. What are we saying? Shulchan Aruch only mentions, make sure there's 40 saw. Mashma, if it's more, on the mashma, you can't ask on the Ramah why he doesn't. If it's just on a mashma, an inference, he can wait. Very interesting in the... Mishum delay mefurish behead b'divrei mechabel ahedya ub'kahai gavna motzina b'kama makomis. You find very often that the Ramah will wait for his observation and critique until something that is mefurish. Okay, that's by the way. Fine. So the Shulchan Aruch is the Ramah, of course, will argue with this. Now he says, "Miloshen habach." Mashma sheyesh lahachmir af di'evet. Now, here, this is important. The Bach, so the Me'il Tzedakah says, better, the Me'il Tzedakah says it would be better, be machmir. Make the mikveh so big so that no water leaves when somebody goes in. Make the water so big. The Bach says it's a real problem. He's machmir even b'di'evet. Based on the Bach in Seif Nun, says the Me'il Tzedakah, over here in our case also, when you're making the walls of your mikveh, make sure that they are so high that no water goes out betfilas Adam. Hein gadol lefi gadol, v'kotnoi lefi kotnoi, shelo yihiyu zochalin. Now, I am going to stop you right here, and I'm going to just give you a tiny insight into an issue that won't become clear yet for another 1 or 2 shiurim. I don't know if any of you have been down to, you must have been down, even if it's just on every Yom Kippur or whatever. You go every day, we know, of course, Beseda, but whatever. But we have another boyer side by side with the mikveh. It happens to be a boyer zriya, it doesn't matter, we'll get to all of that. And there is what is called hashaka, literally kissing, right? It is connected. And there is an opening between the boyer on the side and what you and I would call the mikveh, the boyer tvila, right? Now, depending on how we fill this, and don't want to get too complicated, we do hamshacha, zriya, hashaka. But we'll come to all of that. Depending on how we fill it, sometimes, for various reasons, it could be evaporation, it could be for a bunch of different reasons, sometimes it is certainly, at least theoretically possible, that, this is my boyer on the side, right? Which has an opening into the boyer tvila. Imagine that for some reason, this is the boyer tvila and it's here. It's down here. The water's down here. Okay? Which technically is not a problem because I have a lot more than memsah. It does not have to be. We're on camera, but one of the first things that happened to me when I came here was a certain person, which will remain nameless, called me up in a bit of a panic, that they had noticed that the mikveh downstairs, that the level was below the Shveferes Hanaid, from one boat to the other. And how long has it been like that? And I said to them, so what's the problem exactly? But it's not connected to the... And therefore... No problem. It's not a problem. Amaratzis. But this is potentially an issue. Here's an issue potentially, and this is where we're going to have to discuss this. When somebody goes in, so if it's like this, somebody goes in. They don't need to be all that fat. If it's just it's just a little bit below. What's going to happen? Some of the water, they're going to displace the water and push water back into the boyer zriya on the side. Now. That's point number 1 that we need to think about. Is that a problem? Zechila into another boyer. But not all of the water will come back. Some of it will get trapped potentially because potentially not all of it, some of it will stay in depending on how much is displaced. That's physics, right? And is that a problem? So I'm just giving you a heads up as to why we're going to go into this because this is...
problem is it becomes zochalin if it doesn't come back.
Possibly zochalin, and there may be another problem as well, possibly. Which I'm just at this stage. What I want to do is, as we're going along, I want to try, whenever possible, to connect it to the practicality. That's really what we're trying to do. We're not learning Mikvaos. To learn Mikvaos will take a long time. We are only learning the bits, as I've said. The idea of this mini course is so that you have a familiarity with as it applies practically. Okay? So I'm raising this. This is why it's coming in here now. Okay? Just remember this issue. We're going to come back to it. So we have the Me'il Tzedakah. The Me'il Tzedakah says this is a problem. The Bach says b'di'evet, even it's a problem. Okay? And therefore, it has to be high enough so that no water leaves the mikveh at all when a person goes in. That's the Me'il Tzedakah of the Bach. Let's go on. V'chacham echad cholik alav shezeh lo mikra zochalin. There is a chacham, at the moment unnamed, who argues on the Bach and says, nah, that's not called zochalin. Dedav keim hamayim yotzim me'atzmon. This is called, here's the shaila, zechila al yidei tvila. In other words, is it a din in the mikveh? The mikveh has a structural es ist defect. Es ist defect, right? Is that what you say something? It's defective in English, we would say. The mikveh has a problem. But if you go in and the zechila al yidei tvila, maybe that's gar kein problem. Right? That's what the Chacham Echad wanted to be chaylik. And he wanted to say, that's not called zechila. Dav kim hamayim yotzim mi'atzmam v'lo ksheyotzim al yidei ha'toivel kim mavur b'shach sifkat lamad. Now this is an important shach. I don't know if we're going to go into it. We'll see. V'hu zal chozar v'heishiv loi, and the Me'il Tzedakah responded and said he stood by his opinion. Dav kim ksheyotzim ha'toivel. Do you know when it's not a problem? He wants to learn pshat in the shach. When is it not a problem that zechila al yidei the tvila v'odom? That's only if yachzur hamayim lemkoimam lav zochalinein. We saw that just now in the Ramah here. Remember? That's why I'm doing this now. We've got the background. So the Ramah just said that that's only if it doesn't go back. But if it goes back, then it's not a problem. So he says, the Me'il Tzedakah says to the shoyel, to the person who argued with him, when do I say tvila al yidei odom is not a problem? That's only if it comes back. But if some of the water will not go back, even though it's Halidei Tvila, Adam Vadai Hava Zochalin. So, there we have the Pischei Tshuva. Having done that, let's continue.
Well, we will make for sure.
Well, Halacha L'maisa, we're still going to have to see.
My question is
Yes.
following. Now, this is not a problem, obviously, because it happens all the time, but still, in the light of this shita that the Me'il Tzedakah brings,
Yeah.
why is it then not a problem that every time I go out of the mikveh, I have still water on me? I go out,
Yeah.
I carry I have drops of water, and it for sure doesn't flow back into the mikveh because I'm just going away from the mikveh.
So,
Taking water out.
you can take water out of a mikveh. That's not a problem.
I go in.
When you
So
travel, you also
You always,
Down,
every time...
I actively cause water to overflow. That would be a problem.
Correct,
And if
because
I go out and I have still water on me and it goes.
Why should that be a problem in
Well,
the
it would be absorbed, I
mikveh?
understand, but it's just in the logic of this.
In the logic is because zechila is a din in the mikveh. Taking water out with you there's no problem. I thought what you were going to say. I thought perhaps what you were going to say was that water that drops off you, maybe let's say you stand in the mikveh on the steps for a minute or two, and then some water from your body flows back down into the mikveh. Why would that be a problem? Probably not. But why should there be? We're talking about zechila is a din in the mikveh. It's a din in the mikveh that water is flowing out of the mikveh or being caused to flow out of the mikveh. This is not a zechila. You're walking out of the mikveh. You're allowed to carry. You could take a cup and carry some water with you if you wanted to. You have to be careful that you don't put a bit of it back in or whatever for shuvim. But that's not a problem. This is a din in the structure of pashtus of the mikveh. It's a shaila, by the way, whether it's a din in the structure of the mikveh or a din in the shiur. That's a Vilna Gaon, but I didn't want to go into that. Now, point to note. I want to draw your attention here to the Vilna Gaon, Biur Hagra, Seif Cotton Sadi Aleph. Okay, back to so it's on Seif Nun, Biur Hagra, Seif Cotton Sadi Aleph, and go just down. It's really the first line. I'll read it to you. Hagar. This is on the Yesh Machmirin of the Ramah, the opinion of the Rash. Yes. So he says, Kipshut, you got it? Everybody, Tzadi Aleph? Yeah. Kepashtoi, so the Gaon does what he always does. He first gives us the Makar. Where's this from? The Ramah. Kepashtoi shel Pirush Harash. Fine. V'chein das Hamodcha, V'horash ba. Now this is the next 5 words is the fridge magnet, right? The bits to underline. Avol ra'ayos horosh ein lahoshiv, says the Gaon, but the proofs that the Rosh brings are rock solid, and basically what he's telling us is he's siding with the Shulchan Aruch and the Rosh, and not with the Ramah and the Rash. The Vilna Gaon is not accepting the Ramah and the Rash halacha l'maisa. Just be aware, okay? And that is interesting.
You said halacha l'maisa. This is not how most people paskin, but they're still based on the Shulchan.
I didn't say how we paskin. I don't think I said. And I want to add one more point to you here, please, and that is the Chazon Ish and the Tzemach Tzedek. That's the Lubavitcher one. Also, there's 2 Tzemach Tzedeks, that's why I'm saying. Yeah? The Chazon Ish and the Tzemach Tzedek appear to agree with the Vilna Gaon. So there is significant weight attached here to the Shulchan Aruch and the Rosh, keneged the Ramah and the Rash. Just be aware of that. Okay? So when we're talking about a crack, we're talking about zechila. Oh, I know what I forgot to do with you. Oy vey. I need to do it tomorrow. We didn't discuss whether this psul is b'deraisa or drabanan. Sorry, we need to do that. But, so, l'sikum ha'inyan. So, of where we're up to. We have a machlokes mechaber Ramah, which is machlokes Rosh and Rash, whether zechila passes the entire mikvah, or is it only a din in the shiur? And as long as I have memsar, even if there's some zechila, I don't care. And interestingly, the Vilna Gaon and the Chazon Ish and the Tzemach Tzedek would appear to be siding with the Shulchan Aruch lekula. Okay? Before we move on, that's a good sikkum. Now, let's move on to Seif Nun Aleph. Let's move on to Seif Nun Aleph. And here, this is the sugya of zechila she'ena nikeres. Okay? And this is our introduction to the whole world of filters. Okay? Which is really important at a practical level. Says the Shulchan Aruch, Nikev ha-mikveh, Sif Nun Aleph, Nikev ha-mikveh meimav noitfin ma'at. You have a hole in the mikveh and water is seeping out a little bit. Or could be out through the walls, and this is interesting. He says nivloyin bekarka. There's a difference between noitfin and nivloim. Noitfin in Hebrew means to drip, tip. Nivloim means absorbed. There's just absorption. It just gets naturally absorbed into the karka. It's not noitef. It says the Shulchan Aruch, kosher. Lefi she'ein zechilosan nikeres. It's not a problem. Lefi she'ein zechilosan nikeres. Because the zechil, in other words, let's analyze this. And the Mekoyer here is the Rashba. Mekoyer to this halach is the Rashba. The zechila, in other words, it would appear to be that it's not zechila. Why is it not zechila? Only because of the insignificance of the amount. It's a shiur. In other words, it really is zechila, but it's not enough zechila to be halachically problematic.
He doesn't say it because there's no whirlpool effect.
He just says it's not nikeres.
Okay, but nikeret I would
Translate nikeres.
like visually.
Ekenba. Genau.
Nikeret is like a visual.
Correct. It would appear that's we're going to see. We're going to see how the Achronim learn this. But it would. But he hasn't. What's called nikeres? I mean, how do I have to? How long do I have to stand there? Do I have to see something like you say the whirlpool of it? And this is a shaila in the Achronim what this means. But before we go any further, I want to draw your attention here to an astounding and probably one of the most famous. Certainly, I think it's probably the most famous opinion of the Vilna Gaon in Hilchos Mikvaos, or certainly one of the most important and very, very famous. And that is the Vilna Gaon here, Tzadi Vav. Divrei ha-mechaber tmuin. Says the Shulchan Aruch, says the Gaon, Divrei ha-mechaber tmuin. This seif in Shulchan Aruch I don't get it. Says the I don't get it. The Rashba kosav l'shitosai. The Rashba is the who goes according to the Rash in the previous seif, the Machmir. Aval lefi ma shekosav b'seif hakodim, de'ein nifsal ela im kein lo yishor memsa, va'af va'oz af b'chi hagavin apostle. The Shulchan Aruch doesn't go along with the Rash. The only thing that I care about with Zechila is whether or not I'm left with Memsah. So what is the Shulchan Aruch now contradicting himself and bringing an opinion which is only relevant where I have a problem of Zechila. Zechila is a big monster. Nothing to do with Memsah. Zechila passels an entire mikveh. Then it would make sense for the Ramah to come along and quote the Rashba and say, but what is called Zechila? Only if it's Nikar, if it's Eina Nikeres, and it's... According to the Shulchan Aruch, what is the Shulchan Aruch, asks the Vilna Gaon, what is the Shulchan Aruch doing, bringing here the Rashba? It is irrelevant according to him. According to the Shulchan Aruch, who is Mekel, not like the Rash, the only thing I care about is the Memsah, is the not Memsah. Finished. The Zechila Nikeres plays no role. And therefore, the Vilna Gaon seems to be paskening that Zechila she'ein on Nikeres and remember, put the two Vilna Gaons together. The Vilna Gaon pasken like the Shulchan Aruch, not like the Ramah. So Zechila Nikeres, ein Nikeres, not a problem.
But if the crack is further down, then it will be a problem, and it will be.
It's a problem because of the fact that you're going. It's irrelevant whether it's Nikeres or not. The point is, I only need to ask one question: will I be left with Memsah or not?
Oh.
Will I be left with Memsah? That's all.
But
Whether I am Nikeres or not is irrelevant. Why is that relevant? That's what the Vilna Gaon is saying.
If there's if you have the situation of a crack in the karka, right?
Yes.
And this is would be a.
So will you be left with Memsah at the end of the day?
It's in the ground.
Then it's possible. Finished.
Exactly. So if we say that there's some leakage, which is because of its balua in the karka, for example, right? Which is a natural leakage, which is not compared to a real crack.
But you're not going to be left with Memsah. If the Lomdus, you've got to think about what if this is the logic. If I'm not going to be left with Memsah, and therefore already now the whole mikveh is possible, because I'm not going to be left with Memsah, let's say it's in the ground, like you say, crack in the ground, I'm not going to be left with Memsah, then according...
But those
Yeah.
But those things which are not nikeret are usually not making it lose as much water as it's like...
Doesn't say how long it has to take. Doesn't say how long it has to take.
Over a year or so.
Doesn't say how long it has to take. If you're not going to be left with Memsah, it's no good. So we have a bit of a tension. We'll have to stop here today. But we have a bit of a tension. We'll try and resolve it tomorrow, and I'll give you the halacha l'maisa. We'll try it tomorrow, and I think we've got pretty much the groundwork, pretty much in place. And
Wet.
yes, okay. We'll have the pool party possibly tomorrow. Okay, shkayach. Thank you, Rabbi Isai. Have a good day.